Me and my friend Rob has been planning these photos of him doing the poses under the Milky Way for so long. As the Milky Way season came to an end last October, we finally had a chance to say, hey, let's do it, because we got time. The skies are clear, there's no clouds, and the Milky Way setting to the west, and we got a nice location, which is Lincoln's Rock in the Blue Mountains. But that didn't go to plan. The wind was atrocious, and not just that, there's now parking restrictions, and we can only park there up to 10 p.m, which is mind-blowing. Mind you, Milky Way was not really visible until about 8:30 to 8:45 that night. Regardless of the wind, we still scout the location and try to find whereabout within that area that we can still probably take photos away from the wind or hide from the wind, probably behind a rock, but we could not find locations that we can really hide from the wind.
I don't think it's safe. It's like a wind tunnel down there.
After the sunset, even after the Milky Way is starting to rise, we just keep sitting in the car, checking the wind forecast, but the wind just did not stop. We decided to go ahead.
By the way, Rob looks good in my denim. Too freaking cold, man. You gotta cover up.
And we only had 10 minutes before we had to leave because of the parking restrictions. That was just like bang, 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 change pose, change different angle, change different composition, going from 30 seconds to 20 seconds to 10 seconds to 5 seconds exposure, because it is very hard to Rob to stay still doing a yoga pose for that long, especially when the wind's blowing so hard. We probably only have about 2 usable images. The camera that I used was Nikon Z9 paired with a Nikon Z lens 24-70 f2.8. The ISO is 6400, so it's pretty high ISO because I want to have a shortest amount of time frame, which is 5 seconds, and I'm shooting mainly on f2.8. On a bigger picture of the edit, generally what we're going to do with the Milky Way photos is we're going to accentuate the Milky Ways. Of course, this is shot in RAW, so there's a lot of data that we can play around. And we're going to do a lot of maskings from the foreground to the background so we can edit them separately. There's a couple of stages with this edit. The first edit is just doing the Lightroom, and if you're happy with that, you can stop where we finish the Lightroom edit. But if you want to see how I'm also going to edit this in Photoshop, you can stick around, and I'm going to show you what are the possibilities that we can do in Photoshop. Alright, let's get into it. This is the photo. Now, the very first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we've got the right white balance, which is pretty neutral. This one looks pretty good already because it looks pretty neutral. I'm gonna up the vibrance and saturation to 100. So it's very an exaggerated version of the image of the colors, because that way we can double check the white balance to make sure it's not too cool, not too warm. We need something just right in the middle, somewhere around this would be pretty good. I shot with auto white balance. I don't normally do that with the auto white balance, especially when I intend to stack the photos or combine multiple photos into one single exposure. But because I knew with these shots, I only need one exposure photos anyway. Now with the tint, also want to make sure it's not too much to the magenta or not too much on the green. So let's find somewhere in the middle. I reckon that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So we bring the vibrance and saturation back to 0. Now with the exposure, I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit to the acceptable exposure so that we know what we're working on here. And the next thing is I'm gonna do the dynamic range. Might drop the highlights a little bit and might up the shadow so we can see the foreground a bit more. I think I'm happy with that. We might need to bring down the exposure a little bit more after this. And I'm gonna play with the contrast and increase the white and then drop the black. So we got pretty good contrast here. Okay, so let's drop the exposure down. Now I'm gonna up the vibrance a little bit here, just bring in more colors. If you think you need to work on more contrast, then you can definitely play around with the white and black, or you can play around with the tone curve as well. Because I was shooting at the widest aperture at f2.8, so there's quite a visible vignette in the edges there. If you're happy with that, you can leave it. but I'm just gonna de-vignette that a little bit more by going to lens correction, manual, just so that when I darken the photos, when I increase the black, it doesn't darken the edges any further. I think I'm happy with that. Just a little bit vignetting, it's fine. And also in the profile section here, I normally take the remove chromatic aberrations. Nikon lenses are really good with chromatic aberrations. You almost got like very minimum to none chromatic aberrations, but I still tick that just in case. If using the older lenses, then it is very helpful to tick that off. Now, enable profile correction. I don't normally do this when I work with multiple images that I want to stack into one, but because again, I'm working with just one single exposure right now, so I just tick that off. Now let's do the masking. So we're now going to work with the foreground and the background separately. So let's start with the sky. So I'll mask just the sky and see if it, yeah, it actually do the masking pretty well. So what do we need with the skies? You can make it brighter if you want. You can increase the exposure by a bit, and you can also increase the contrast. So we can see the Milky Way pop up a bit more. Slightly more saturation. Once you're happy with the stars, with the background, and you want to edit solely the foreground, then with this mask that we already selected just for the sky, we can just go right click and duplicate and invert mask. So the Lightroom is just going to mask whatever that is not being masked on the previous mask, if that makes sense. There's a lot of masks here. All the reds here are the area that's being masked, and if we make any changes, then it will only affect these areas. I think Lightroom picks it up pretty well. I reckon a bit more highlights on this one, so we can show Rob in there. I might drop the shadow a little bit more, just very slightly increase the white. Maybe we can increase brightness on Rob. I want to increase the sky up a bit more. On the global adjustment, I'm going to darken this a little bit more. If you're happy with this, you can just leave it the way it is. This is the before, this is the after. If you want to just do the edit in Lightroom, you can just add more radial gradient and only mask the Milky Way core itself and increase the contrast just on the Milky Way core part. You can drop the black, increase the white. You can make it slightly brighter if you want, and you can add slightly more colors if you want. This is basically just the before and after. If you're happy, just leave it in Lightroom for the edit. Another thing that you can add if you leave it in Lightroom edit is do the denoise to denoise the whole photos. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this edit to Photoshop and show you how I normally do that and what sort of possibilities are possible in Photoshop. So I'm going to right click on the photo in Lightroom and I'm going to go edit in Adobe Photoshop. Essentially what we're going to do in Photoshop is we're going to do another masking, and we're going to separate the stars from the gas of the Milky Way itself. So we're going to create layers. We're going to go layer, duplicate layers. We're going to create two layers. The first one is we're going to call it starless. I'm going by the name. Then we're going to get rid of the stars from this layer, and we're going to create a separate layer, duplicate layer again, and we're going to go stars, and this layer is going to be purely just the stars. So how are we going to do that? There's a plugin called RC Astro. This is a paid plugin. It's not too expensive. I would recommend you to get one. And there's a star exterminator and a noise exterminator. So we're going to do the star exterminator now. So we're going to get rid of the stars, and then Photoshop's going to show only the gas of this Milky Way core. All right, this is only the gas of the Milky Way core, and this is with the star. Now we're going to separate the stars, and we're going to isolate just the stars on this layer. Select the stars layer, get an image, go to apply image, and the system's gonna ask, hey, which layer that you're gonna work with. We're gonna go starless, and how you're going to work with what sort of blending mode you want to do with the starlets. And we're going to go subtract. We're going to end up with just the stars. So this is it. This is just the stars. The next thing is we're going to blend this in. There's a couple of blending modes here available to you. This is again your creative vision. If you want to see more stars in the photos, then your best bet will be the linear dodge. But if you want to have the least stars in the photos, then your best bet will be lighten or color dodge. I do the linear dodge here. Okay, cool. Okay, now as I mentioned, I'm gonna accentuate the Milky Way a bit further. So we're gonna select the starless layer. We're gonna go to filter and we're gonna bring up camera raw filter. This is gonna bring up the camera raw filter, which is gonna be visually almost similar to the Lightroom. What I'm doing is I'm gonna separate the sky again because we're only gonna work with sky layer for now. And I'm going to dehaze this. As you can see, when I dehaze the sky layer, the Milky Way is gonna look a bit more contrast and prominent. But at the same time, as you can see, it's actually cooling down the colors, which then introduce more bluish color in the Milky Way. So I'm just gonna overcome that by increase the warm color a bit more. Okay, and if you think that's probably too dark, you can increase the exposure by a bit here as well. And all this adjustment that we're making here, it's only affect the skies, by the way, because we've masked the sky. No, I don't need more shadows. Do I need to darken the sky a bit more? Yes, I think I do. So just drop the blacks. I don't think we need it's extra magenta, or maybe we need that. Yeah, and it's really up to you if you wanna edit the foreground separately as well. But I'm just gonna leave it at this and then hit OK. In my vision, I want the edges here to be a bit darker, so that way when the viewers look at the image, they're being drawn to Rob and also the Milky Way, and not so much to the edges here on the sides. The next thing that we're gonna do, or I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna reduce the noise. Also, I'm using the plugin from the RC Astro. So I select the starless layer here, I go to filter, and then go down to RC Astro, and then I'm doing the noise exterminator. Okay, that's the before and that's the after. I'm pretty happy with this. From this point on, I'm gonna bring the edit back to Lightroom just to do the final touches here to darken these sides a bit more. So we're gonna do Command S on Mac or Control S if you're using Windows. So what's Photoshop doing right now is it's saving this image and bring it back to Lightroom as a TIFF file. Back in Lightroom now. Now looking at a histogram here is probably looking at a little bit on a darker side. So I definitely want to increase the exposure by a little bit more. Okay, I can increase the white. Yeah, we can see the difference there. Okay, I might do another masking again. I mean, it's up to you. If you're happy with the outcome up to this point, I guess you can leave it as is. But I'm just gonna accentuate this a little bit further. So just drop the black on this, increase the white, add extra colors, increase the exposure here. Just add a new mask, linear gradient. Okay, so let's darken this part a bit more. Let's do the same on the other side. Let's brighten Rob just a little bit more here. Just to show him more to the world. And it looks like it's a bit too warm on the skin tone here, so I'm just gonna reduce that by introducing a little bit more cool color, and then drop the saturation a little bit here, just by a little bit. Looking at the image again, I'm probably gonna crop this a little bit so the image looks more balanced. reckon. Okay, I'm just gonna add a bit more contrast here on the Milky Way core by dropping the black. I think I am pretty happy with this result. So this is the original photo. This is the edit that we did in Lightroom. Again, you can enhance that a bit more in Lightroom if you want. And this is the photo edits that we did in Photoshop. So Lightroom, Photoshop, and then back to Lightroom just to accentuate the Milky Way side of it. So if you like this video, you know what to do. You can ask me any questions in the comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you. And also, I'm gonna have my Milky Way photography course coming up soon. If you want to be notified, you can definitely register your interest in the link somewhere in this video, whether that's down below or in my bio. And I'm gonna show you how to plan your Milky Way shoot, what gears are ideal for Milky Way, what's good lenses, good cameras, work with multiple images, star trail, stacking images, all of those. I'm gonna bundle everything together into my Milky Way photography course. And thanks for making it this far. That will be all for this video, and make this world a better place. I will see you in the next video. Bye.